Okay, it's recording.
Okay,
How has your day been so far?
talking to you now.
Pardon me?
How has your day been so far?
How is your day going?
Oh, my day. Oh, very good, very good. Can't complain.
Mhm.
So is it okay if you could tell me your life before the war started?
Ooh, boy, I'm gonna have what?
I'm sorry, what is the question?
Is it okay if you could tell me his life before America entered World War II?
How was life just before World War II? What were
Oh.
you doing? You were an art student, right?
Right, right. I was going to art school in San Francisco. I had gotten a scholarship from high school. And yeah, and yeah, everything was cool. I had a friend there. We used to have lunch in the back there and discuss situation, the war, and that eventually we would be called and where we would prefer serving and whatever. Yeah. Yeah, everything was pretty well in control.
How did you get interested in art?
How did you get interested in art?
Oh, I always was. Was it when I was a little kid in, what was it? Was that might be 5 or 6 years old? I did some drawing in school. I remember the teacher was impressed, and she showed it to the rest of the class. Yeah, that was the beginning.
That's awesome. Did you have to work as a child?
Did you work as a child? Did you have to work?
No, I didn't. No, I didn't. No. No. That situation didn't exist.
Mhm.
What was your family like?
What was your family like? Your parents?
First of all, I was the only child ever. Yeah, as far as they were concerned. And when I grew up in Europe, my father worked in well, let me go back.
Tell her a little bit about your parents.
Yes, what I'm
Yeah,
going to
yeah.
do. My father came over here before World War I. He had the family had friends in Canada, and from then he came into the U.S. and he worked the coast as a stevedore. He did all sorts of work to survive until he got to San Francisco. And when he got there, he was looking for lodging, and he found lodging in a small hotel. And now my father came from France, and fortunately, the people who ran the hotel spoke French, and right away he found a home there. And as story goes, these people, that same people who owned the hotel, later became my godparents. And so, no, but yeah, I even have to go before that. My father, yeah, he got to San Francisco, and he started doing Oz jobs. And America entered the war in 1917. my father felt an obligation towards France, so he joined the American Army, and he went to Europe as an American soldier. He was wounded, he was gassed, and after the war, he came back to the U.S. and back to San Francisco, and he went into business. He started a garage. That was during the roaring 20s. But he decided he wanted to get married, so he wanted to marry a French girl. So he went back to France to the site where he was born, which is the French Alps. And he had a whirlwind romance with my mother. They got married, and they came to the U.S., to San Francisco. But for some reason or other, my mother was not happy here. And but my father was doing so well in business that he thought he could go back to France, where my mother would be happier, and live off his investments. So what do you think happened? So we went back to France, and I was maybe I was around 4 or 5, maybe 4, and the crash hit. My father was wiped out financially. All the money he had invested was gone. And so he had to find a place to work. So he went to Paris and he found some work in the aircraft plants. Meanwhile, my mother realized that she goofed up in wanting to go back to France, because she was, you know, a woman who enjoy, I mean, who works into, you know, keeping a house neat and wanting the conveniences to clean and, you know, in the house that and then she realizes those conveniences did not exist in France. All of a sudden, it came suddenly obvious to her, even though she wanted to come back. She realizes that it was so much more easier for the woman to survive in the U.S. because of all the conveniences. You have the bathroom, you have hot and cold running water. You know, those are, unless you lived in Paris in the last apartment houses that were built around that time, where those installations existed. In the rest of most of the cities, they didn't, you know. So I mean, where we live, we even have our own private bathroom. We had to share it with somebody else in the house. We didn't even have hot and cold running water. My mother had to heat the water on the stove. To take a bath on the weekends, we heated a big tub on a potbelly stove, and that's how we took a bath. So, you know, those situations were rugged. And but my mother, each time she had an opening with my dad, she would say, "Clem, let's go back to America," you know, and because life for a woman was much easier here. So not only that, but then, you know, Germany was rearming, and people were telling my dad, if you can go back to the U.S., there's a war coming. So he wrote to Washington, and they said yes. So we came back, and we came back to San Francisco. And um, there was no work there for my dad because we were still living in a depression. And so my dad borrowed some money from these French people, and he bought a hotel. They were doing a pretty good living. So why couldn't he run a hotel? So that's what he did. So that's where we lived. And both my mother ran the hotel. It was around a 70-room hotel. My dad did 35 rooms, and she did 35 rooms. So they were busy. And so then I went to school, and I went to junior high school for a year, and I went to high school. Then the war started. And so you see, my parents were very busy and running the hotel. So like I said, I went to school and I won a scholarship. I was good in art. I had a leanings toward the arts. So I got a scholarship from this particular school. It was one of the better schools in San Francisco, to go. So that's where I was when the war hit. And so
now why did you enlisted, right? Did you enlist or were you drafted?
yeah, no, when I wanted to go in, I was too young. I was a year younger. They wouldn't accept me at 17. But the officer, I still remember him, Captain Watson. He said, "Look, I'll tell you what you do. When you get to be 18, you rush down to your draft board and you ask for a voluntary induction." So that's what I did. And but not only that, but the captain promised me that once I was mustered in, I would join the unit, because I thought that it would be great to be in the 933rd and 914th Engineers. I probably would be privileged. Probably I didn't have to do all the chores that privates initially have to do when they go into a unit, like kitchen police, cleaning the grease pit, guard duty at night, and all that sort of thing. So I was mustered in. I went to Hamilton Field, north of San Francisco, and I was there for 4 weeks, and they put me in casual barracks, and I was expecting to eventually to be called into the 914th Engineer. Never happened. One day I was called in, and they told me I could, my dream rent, and they cut orders, and they sent me to Southern California, where they were forming these battalions, where they were engineer battalions, and their duty was to build airfields in the Pacific. So that's where I took basic training in the desert, and I became a member of the 1885th Engineer Aviation Battalion.
Wow.
And and you see, in those days, when the war started, we were not ready. So they cut the time in doing everything. They had to build units in cut rate time. So like today, they get 10 weeks of basic training. We only got 4, and they ran our butts, night and day. And so we went overseas on the day that they invaded Normandy. They in Europe. June 6th is when I left. We went port of embarkation from Seattle on June 6th, 1944, and then from there we headed to Hawaii, and first of all, you got to remember, when I was a child, I was in school. I always enjoyed stories about battles and heroes and soldiers. So I looked at the Army, as they were individuals who hated the Army. They couldn't get used to the organized life and taking orders. It didn't bother me. I sort of enjoyed it. I thought it was kind of a thrill to be a soldier, and I was worried whether I'd had the stuff to be a soldier, because if you're very strong physically, that is an advantage, because you are demanded physically a lot when you're a soldier. And I was always wondering whether I could make it, whether I could walk that far with 50 pounds on my back. And I did it. I had trouble on the rifle range. I had never fired an M1 rifle before. And we only had two chances to qualify. I failed the first chance, and I felt terrible because I let down the platoon. The captain asked me, "What's your problem?" I said, "Well, when we first they were individuals on the right and the left of me, and when their rifle went off, they were loud. I was deaf when I got off the rifle range, and the side of my face was all swelled up because I got anxious, and I shoved my face behind the receiver, and each time the rifle fired, it hit me. But I was so tense, I didn't even feel the hurt until after I got off the rifle range. My whole side of my face was swelled up. Then I had to qualify. So every night in the barracks, I rehearsed the different position: the prone, the standing, the kneeling, the sitting. Finally came the day for the qualification, and I made it. I made it through. And the captain said, "Hey, congratulations!" He shook my hands, and I feel terrific. And so we went overseas, and we stopped in Oahu. We were there a month. All during that time, we did know what our duty, what we were going to do, where we were going. They never told you until you were at sea, where you weren't going to go into a bar and have a few drinks and start talking about what they said and where you were going. They kept things real tight, because they know men would talk and give. They were spies, probably in the bars, trying to hear what the men were talking about to get information. So they didn't tell you anything until you were in a spot where you couldn't speak to anybody. Anyway, and so it was fun and games until Hawaii, because Hawaii was the land of demarcation. When you left in Hawaii, you were going to harm's way. So things change. And so finally we loaded up aboard you got to remember often you hear stories, how soldiers went to Europe on the Queen Mary. We were not on the former liner. We were on freighters who were converted to carry troops. And so they were not very luxurious. They were not very comfortable. And so we left on this first ship was called the Cape Clear. It was a freighter. And we were following the Marine Corps. The Marine Corps were at sea also, and they were going to land. Our destination was Guam, and they were going to land there, and we were going to follow them in because we couldn't afford to get our men killed. They were supposed to build an airfield, so we couldn't afford to get men killed. So they came behind the Marines, and but in my military career, I was on 4 troop ships, and they all varied in quality. The first one, when we left Hawaii, was the worst. We were aboard that ship over a month, 41 days, and we sweated. It was hot, and I got prickly heat from I learned after the war that individuals got prickly heat from the loss of vitamin C through over sweating, and that's what we were doing. We were sweating. I mean, you were on deck during the day. You couldn't stay below during the day because it was so hot. So you sweated on deck. When you went in the galley to have shower, we only ate twice a day, and you get the heat from the sun heating the steel plates, and then you got the heat from the engine room, and so we just poured with sweat, and this went on for 41 days, and the food, there was no fresh meat, no fresh vegetables, no fruits. I was on kitchen police at one time, and they brought some apples from bottom of the hole. They were all rotten. They were all brown. And I remember there was a guy, he wanted an apple. And I says, but they're no good. Half of them are. He says, no, I'll take it. I says, please give me an apple. And he says, when we land, I'll be in the kitchen police, and I'll give you favors, So finally, we landed on Guam, and the Navy already been there.
What did they have you doing in Guam?
Well, we had to build the airfield. Now, the first thing you do, we had to do because of the war. There's a lot of unexploded shells. There's a lot of unexploded ordnance that is left laying around or in the ground, or they might be mines before we bring the bulldozers over to clear it and make an airfield. So I was in the squads, that's just how they use the privates, to locate the unexploded ordnance. So what you did, they line up a couple of platoons in one line. You take your rifle, you fix the bayonet, and you move forward and you prod the ground, and wherever you hit anything, they had a chart. They would mark it where the object was. And afterwards, another crew would come by, extricate it, and then deactivate it and throw it in the ocean. Not only that, but when you land on an island, everything is chaotic. And when these these LSTs come upon the beach and the front doors open. They carry everything. They carry aircraft fuel. They carry spare parts for tanks, spare parts for trucks. They carry tires. They carry food. They carry clothing, and all this stuff is packed. And some at that time they're not organized to move it. So who moves it? We do. They use our arm. We load the trucks with all this equipment, and then it goes to a certain part of the island. They have places they call dumps where they put all the boxes with the food in it, and then another place they'll have tires or gasoline. So then we had another. Once the airfields were built, they needed water. Now we had Guamanian guides who knew where the water was, but the water was in areas where the Japanese were still holding out, remote areas in valleys. So I mean, there you could get shot, you could get killed. So I was on every patrol that went in this particular valley, and we stayed there at night. At first, we were there for a couple of days. Then later on, we were there for over a week, and so we worked during the day, or we were on guard at night for around 3 hours. And we knew there was a Japanese colonel and 30 men holding out in a cave somewhere in that valley. So, but I was on guard at night, but during the day, in the morning, they gave me a couple of hours off, and I couldn't swim. So I learned to swim by myself in the surf there. And it was safe enough because there were reefs way out there who stopped the undertow and the riptide and all that. So it was perfectly safe. So that's where I learned to swim by myself. And we had guards at night, and one night we met against some Japanese, and on my mother's side, one of her uncles. I was asleep at the time. I worked during the day, so. But when the shooting started, I could tell the weapons. I could tell the carbine, the M1, and the Thompson. So I grabbed my rifle and I rushed toward the shooting. But I thought to myself, if the Japanese broke through, there was no lights. All I would see shadows moving, and I could shoot my own people. So I stopped. And I waited until the shooting stopped, and then I saw one of our guys, Big Willie from Detroit. I said, "Well, what happened?" He said, "Well, we got a couple of Japs, and they may have been the lead of a party that was on the move, and they didn't know we were there. They ran right into our camp, and then." When they realized there was a camp, one of them, he ran out of his sandals. His sandals was left. He ran out, and then our guards saw him running, and they shot at him. And one of them, he had a grenade. And instead of throwing the grenade at our guys, he pushed a plunger. He pushed it to his chest, and his buddy joined him, and they blew themselves up. And So we buried him the next day. So that was our experience. We used to call it the hole, because it was like a hole going down there. And it's interesting. I talked to my Guamanian friends, and I said, and I told them, I want to find out the name of that place. And on a computer, they use a top view of the island, and I saw it. I said, this is the place where we were. Oh, he says, oh, that's Haputo. And when we went back in 2019, I was back on Guam, and we were going to go see Haputo. We all got into taxis, 3 taxis, and we drove north. But now it's a rest area for the Navy, and we reached the gate. There was a guard. We didn't have any papers to let us in. We didn't get in. I wanted to go back there, just to remind, just for old time's sake, And so anyway, after we did our work on Guam, we shipped off for Okinawa, and we were there 8 months. But mainly we were there for the invasion of Japan. They were getting ready to invade Japan, and that's why I'm wearing this uniform here. It's all wool. We were going to land where they have. See, we've been in the tropics for about a year there. And when we left the United States, they took all our woolen away because they know where we were going. We were going to need them. But while we were on Okinawa, we were going to land on Hokkaido where they have the season. So they gave us back all our woolen uniforms. But then they dropped the bomb. And that ended it. There was no reasons for us to go to Japan. I guess they had other troops going there to occupy it, but our work was done. So I was on Japan. I was on Okinawa 8 months, and then I came back in February 1946, and. So it was quite an experience. I personally would say I grew up in the Army. I was different when I came back. Yeah. And so I really enjoy the islands. Because of my art training, I looked at it as an artist. I could divorce myself from the war and appreciate the beauty of the islands. I understand Paul Gauguin's paintings. The moment I was in Hawaii, when I looked at the colors and the mountains, I could understand his paintings. So, but on Guam, the beaches are beautiful. It was always between the 80s and the 90s. All we wore was a fatigue jacket. That was all we wore. And it was a great experience for me. I didn't get hurt, so I got nothing to complain about. Oh yeah, we had it tough. When we landed on Guam, I think that about 2 weeks there, we were all down with dengue fever, dysentery, heat exhaustion. I had something too. I remember I didn't have much strength. I remember going on a patrol, and at the end of the day, I told her, so I can't go on anymore. I can't. So he says, well, you take a couple of days off. And they gave us salt tablets. That's all they gave us, salt tablet. And we ate sea rations. It was a can that you open up, and the place was full of flies, and all these big maggot flies would try, take your food. I mean, share your food. The first weeks were tough. They were tough. A lot of Japanese were buried in shallow graves, and it would rain, and the sun would come out, hot sun, and there would be steam coming out of the earth, and it had the stench. They had to get us out of there, and finally the officers got us out of there. We went to Tumon Bay. Tumon Bay was like heaven. The floor was sand, and when it rained, the sand absorbed the water, and they were palm trees. We were close to the ocean. There was always a breeze. We'd push away the mosquitoes. That was nice. I really liked Tumon Bay. And today, Tumon Bay is like Miami Beach. It's all grown with resorts, I mean, they even torn down the palm trees who were bordering. They should not have done that. I mean, the palm trees really helped to make that, that intimate area by the beach. They tore down the palm trees. I couldn't forgive them for that. For some reason, I don't know, it was a matter of money or what, but they tore down all the palm trees. But and the first airfield, it's interesting. The first airfield that we built there, I was looking for it. And the Guamanians, they don't even know, those that were born since there don't even know their history. I told them, where's the airfield that we built? And I said, well, yeah, it's probably over there. And, and while we were there, Tumon Bay, the relationship of Tumon Bay to the first airfield that we built. Well, the first airfield is where the international airfield is. That's where it is. So that our field has been developed now. It's used as the international airfield. And we built 3 airfields. And the other one is the military airfield of Guam, of that area. And the other one was abandoned. But I hear that all the Marines that are being chased out of Okinawa, they're gonna use that airfield. It's a helicopter outfit. Yeah, so it was fun going back. It was fun, and yeah. So, you got any questions?
Hold on. What's one thing from the war that you will never forget?
What's one thing you'll never forget about the war?
I'll never forget when we were in Haputo, the night after those 2 Japanese were killed. I was on guard duty, and I thought that their friends would come down and take it out on us, and it was in the dead of night, and I heard crawling in front of me, about 20 feet away. And I thought they were coming in on us. 30 of them, we couldn't have survived. And I knew if they charged us, I'd have about 5 minutes to live, because I might get one, but by the time I shot one, they're on us. All they got to do is throw a grenade in the hole or stick us with bayonets, and it'd be all over. And although I was, I'll never forget that night. Never forget. And then the next morning, I felt terrific because I survived the night. Because I didn't think, I didn't think I would survive, but I survived the night. And I remember I went in the surf and I threw some water in my face. The sun was up and it hit my back and warm up my back. And it felt so good, and I felt so good to be alive. Oh my God, I never felt how much I wanted to live and how much I enjoy being alive. Yeah, I never forget that time. Yeah, that was a moment I would never forget. Yeah. And even sometime when I get a little depressed, a little blue, I think back on those days and say, oh yeah, I'm happy. Happy, dummy.
Like how lucky I am.
Were there any medals or awards that you received?
Any medals, awards that you received?
Well, we received this award. This is for we built the airfield in record time. Yeah, we got this is a memorial award for the unit.
Wait, I don't think I can see it.
Did you see it?
No, I don't think I can.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, the wreath.
Hold on. Like, you move to the right.
I'm sorry, what was it?
What she said?
I'm sorry, I can't. I'm sorry, I only can see a little bit.
You can't see it?
I can only see a little bit of it. I can't see it fully.
Oh, I don't know. So. See better?
No.
No?
No, can you move to the right?
So maybe up, I can't see. Right, I get up. All right. So.
Yes, I can see it now. Or
Okay.
he's wait, now it's gone.
See it
Wait,
now?
can you move it a little bit?
And what?
Is it okay if you can move it a little bit?
I can't, I couldn't
Is it okay
understand.
if you can move it a little bit? No, to the right.
To the right.
My right. Sorry.
Oh, you're right.
Yes, I can see it now. I can see it.
Okay. And what else you have on your,
Oh, I got my ribbons.
so he's got all his ribbons.
Oh yeah, I got my ribbons.
You
I
see
can
them?
see them.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, that's the Asiatic Pacific medal with two campaign stars. The stars for the Marianas, that means Guam, and the star for the Okinawa, that means Ryukus. That's my good conduct medal. That's my American defense. That's the victory medal, and that's the Japanese occupation medal.
Wow.
Well, that's the minimum. There are others. They've got 2, 3, 4. They might have a Purple Heart. Yeah.
What was your life like after the war ended?
Well, I went back to art school. I got under the GI Bill, and I was there about 4 years, and then I found I went out in the field and I found a job for the 6th Army headquarters. I was an artist for them for several years, and then I left for Chicago to work in Chicago in the commercial art field. And then I found a job with Foster Kleiser. No, with General Outdoor Advertising. You know, the big billboards you see on the road,
I think.
or in a town that advertise. Well, I designed those. Yeah. I designed those. I think I worked there for about 7, 8 years. And then I left, and then I freelanced, and then I worked with a photographer who had a studio, and I must have spent almost 10, 20 years with him. Yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome. Were there any ceremonies that you went to honoring World War II veterans like yourself?
Have you been to any ceremonies honoring World War II veterans?
Oh, yeah.
He's been
Yeah.
to many.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah. he's
Yeah,
been
we've
to-
been to many. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And it's fun, you know, meeting the guys again and you know, talking the GI language, and yeah, it's fun. Yeah, yeah. It's like not long ago, I was with some friends, and we visited the aircraft carrier Midway, which is in exhibition here in San Diego. And we were eating a bit, and some guy with a woman came by, and I think one of our friends had a something, a souvenir that said Okinawa, and he said, "Oh, you were on Okinawa?" I says, "Yeah, I was." I says, I was in the engineers. We built the airfields. I says, "What did you do?" He says, I was in the engineer too. And he says, "Did you?" And we build airfields too. I was surprised. Out of nowhere, this guy walks in, you know, and I said, what was the number of your outfits? The 800 something. Yeah, I knew that in the 800 there was a lot of aviation engineers. Yeah, in the 800. Yeah. Yeah. I wish I could have spoken with him a little longer, but you know, you went along. And yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we'll, you know, I have a photograph of my company. There was about 100 men. You got it there?
I think I have it in here.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah. This one? This one?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
See, that's my company. You see it?
I can only see a little bit. Wait, can you move to my right?
To this way?
Yes, I can see it.
Okay. I can also email you some pictures. So.
Okay.
Okay.
There was about over 100 men in there. No, they're probably all gone. All these guys are gone. Yeah, yeah. So they were a great bunch of guys. They had a great sense of humor, and oh yeah. What you give?
This one?
Is my picture with the bugler that was taken in 1943. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I was ready to go out on pass. I had a pass. I was ready to go downtown. Yeah. Yeah. And interesting bit. My companion there. His name was Smitty, and my friend Joe. I had a kind of a buddy in my unit because he was interested in the arts too. So everybody else, they were talking football and baseball. I was talking the arts with Joe.
There he is.
Yeah, that's me at 18. And so Joe, I met Joe after the war. He moved north of Chicago, and he was married. He had two daughters and a son. And I used to go skiing during the winter. And coming back, I used to stop at his place. And his wife was Rosemary. She always had apple pie and coffee because I was cold. I've been in the cold weather, and Chicago can be so cold in winter. And she'd have apple pie with me. And then Joe, he was in the arts too. He designed signs, but signs that are lighted at night. And so he was in New York for a convention, and he was staying in this particular hotel, and he was in the hotel going up in the elevator, and he met Smitty, this guy that he met Smitty. And so they were surprised, so they said, hey, won't you have lunch with me? So they had lunch. And then halfway to the lunch, Smitty got serious. He said, do you know who I was? Who I really was? I was in the 85th. I was CID. That means counterintelligence.
His nickname was Mickey.
Yeah.
Mickey, I was talking about.
He was there to check up on everybody. Everybody behaved themselves. And I mean, if any officer or any other soldier tried to undermine their morale or whatever, he would let the government know. In fact, there was one guy there. I think he was he was a lefty. He got a dishonorable discharge. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was very interesting. Very interesting. And
That's a bad choice.
Right. When we stayed in Florida, we were really out in the sticks. We're away from civilization. I mean, there was one town there, but it was far away from our camp. And we were in the woods. See, they wanted us to get used to the wild, to be away from civilization. And so we were there for about 6 months. And I mean, they were we stayed in 6-man pyramidal tents. And we had grill for windows, and at night there were all these insects on the window, and underneath the floor there were good things rustling. There could be there's a lot of snakes, in Florida. There could have been snakes, but we never had any problem with that. Yeah, but the winters were cold. I mean, we didn't have mattresses. We had only blankets, and the cold could come to the canvas of the camera, So yeah, we used to put our overcoats on the cots, to create a layer so we'd stay warm. Yeah. And one day a big truck came in, and it had mattresses, but small mattresses that they use in the service. I was like, great, we got mattresses. And then some officer from the Air Corps said, hey, come on, no, it's not supposed to throw it here. It's supposed to go to our outfit. And we lost the mattresses. We never got the mattress. And the guys were mad at the Air Force. They were mad at the Air Force. Took all their mattresses. And the boys, well, they get a pass and they go to, what's the name of the town? And then, you got to remember, they were not boys. I was a boy. They were mature men. They were men who were in the trades. They were carpenters, cement men, you know, and they were already married and they had kids. So they loved their beer. So they would go to the beer halls, first thing they would do, and drink their beer. Yeah, and we'd pick them up in the evening, going back to camp. And some of them we had to boost them up on inside the trucks. And then we'd ride in Company A, everybody, Company B, Company C, they jump off, and then, yeah.
When they get into a certain range.
Then they'd have roll call on Monday morning. We'd be in line there, you know, they were checking us off. You know, some of them, it was not too steady. Yeah, so they were a great bunch of guys. Great guys. We had comedians too. I mean, there was one guy, he could get away with murder. And
Wait, really?
yeah, and one day I cornered one of the corporals and I said, I said, why is it that Rena, he was a guy who, you know, he was getting in trouble, but he was, you know, he was a senior. He was not young like I was. And I said, why is it that Rena get away with anything? I step out of line and you guys come on me at both feet. I said, you know, what's the story? He says, well, he said, and yeah, you let Rena go. You just slap him on the wrist. And he said, well, he smiled. He said, Rena is too old. We can't do anything with him. But you're young. We can discipline you. So I thought about it. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. I bought it. Yeah, and one day, usually every day was accounted for. There was extra training, and there was one day I wasn't supposed to report it anywhere. So I thought, oh, I do a little sketching. So I took my writing paper and I went outside and I started sketching the trees, you know, with my pen. And I saw some guy come up. He was one of the sergeants, Bergner was his name. Yeah, he looked at me kind of funny. He says, what are you doing? Oh, I says, I'm doing some sketching, you know. Oh, yeah. So he looked at me, he turned around, he disappeared. In about 10 minutes, I heard a rumble coming down the street. It was my platoon sergeant. Bergner went to him and told him what I was doing. He says, oh, you want to work, do you? Well, I'll find some work for you. You know, he grabbed a shovel, says, start grading that road. And they took all my passes away for that weekend. And they restricted me. I took care of the latrines, latrines and the showers. I had 10, 12 toilet bowls.
Break open and put it in.
I mean, even the sergeant thought it was funny. They would be working and they'd come in and laughing, you know. But well, I learned to be a soldier.
So do you have any other questions
Yeah.
before we get Gil over here? Or?
When you went back to Iwo Jima with the Best Defense Foundation, what was the highlight of that trip?
Yeah, so when you went to Iwo Jima with the Best Defense Foundation with Donnie, what did you appreciate about, what did you think about going there?
Oh, I couldn't help but think of the Marines who died there. I could not think about that. I felt kind of awed and very respectful for everything. Yeah, and because my unit was supposed to go to Iwo while we were on Guam. Usually, when you get a statement of charges, it's a paper, a sheet of paper, 8.5 by 11, and there's all your equipment, anything that's worn, you check it off, and you give it back to them, and they give you new equipment. But they only do that when you're leaving the island, and they did that. They were getting, we were going to be on the Iwo Jima, but something happened. We didn't go, and but I mean, the Japanese people only allow
I believe it.
visitors only once a year, and you can see that they have a feeling of reverence toward and all the men that still are buried there.
Yeah.
There's caves and tunnels still buried with Japanese in there, and I remember stepping on the black sand where a lot of Marines took cover the moment they landed there. But a lot of them got killed there, because when we climbed Mount Suribachi, I could see what the Japanese gunners could see, and they could cover that whole beach area where the black sand is, where those guys were. So I think the first wave, I think they were all killed. I don't think too many of them survived the first wave, and that black sand is still there, and there's a certain feeling about that island. Yeah.
One time,
Yeah,
one time we were ready.
There you had a sort of feeling of reverence for all these men who perished there. Yeah. And it was interesting because we had ceremonies. There were people from Japan who came for the ceremony, and we had Marines who came, and they were these young Marines, and I thought of them, just like the ones who landed here. They were young, like 18, 17, full of fun and joking around. But that's the type who landed there, and I couldn't help but connect them with the battle, and we had the celebration there between the Japanese and us. They were singing, and the Japanese, they all bow, they all bow the way they do. And there was a Marine officer there. He had a bull neck, and it seemed like he found it difficult to bow, but he did bow. Yeah. Yeah. And we shook hands with some of the Japanese, and we spoke with them. Yeah, that was very touching. Yeah, it created quite an impression on me, and I'm sure the others too. Yeah.
You don't even want to taste it.
How did you feel when you went back to Pearl Harbor for the 80th anniversary of the attack?
Right, you were just at Pearl Harbor for the 80th
Right,
anniversary.
right, right.
Yeah, how did you feel when you went there?
How did you feel when you went there?
Well, Honolulu has really changed from where I was, where they have all these high-rise buildings, and yeah, I couldn't recognize it. Even we went to Schofield Barracks. I could recognize some of the permanent buildings there that the Japanese shot at, and they shot the movie For Me to Eternity. That I could recognize, but you know, yeah, Oahu as freeways, and they all have these small cars, and they're racing from one point to another, you know, and oh, there was weather on the Pacific when we took off, and I had a window seats on the plane, and from the time we left the coast here all the way to Honolulu, I did not see the ocean. There was cloud cover all the way, and when we got there, I know we were getting there because the plane had an angle that he was coming down, and we kept coming down. All this fog we could until we busted through, and then we could see the water. So, but while we were on the island, there was only a couple of days that the sun was weak, and then it started raining. It rained. And then one night, we had a member with us who was he has a restaurant. He's a connoisseur of cooking. He says, I got to take you to a Japanese restaurant. So it was around 6 o'clock. He took us off. We went up the street there, and we went into this Japanese restaurant, and it was very fancy. I mean, interesting because I couldn't figure out, the streets were empty. This restaurant was in a big building. We had to take an escalator. There was nobody around. But we entered the restaurant. It was full of people. and then it was a top flight restaurant, and where you have the cook, you have your individual cook, and he cooks your meal right in front of you, and then he juggles with the knives and the forks and all that sort of stuff. We had a great dinner. It was great. And then we came out. It was raining. It was raining. I mean, the streets. I mean, the water was above the sidewalk. I mean, it was like a flood running down the street. And then we had water above our ankles. They had me, because they had an extra wheelchair. I was in a wheelchair. This guy was pushing me, and then we had to cross street. And boy, the water was. I mean, it was above my ankles.
Yeah, one of the war vets told me it was really raining.
We had fun. we came in and dried up. Yeah, it was fun. And also, We went to an air base there. It was manned by the Marines. It was a Marine air base. And it was kind of it was a cloudy day. And we had lunch there, and it was I enjoyed having lunch, military, because there were days where the food was not that good, but there the food was good. We had lunch at an Army and a Marine, and the food was very good. And so some Marines came by. They were young Marines, and then we had a big chow. We talked. We had a lot of fun. We talked, and afterwards we went out, and there was going to be a formation of about probably 3 companies of Marines. They were going to do some marching, and so they had for us, we were on the side, and they had a tent, because maybe they expected a little rain, but then it started raining, and and these Marines were out there. They were all in formation, standing at attention, and they were all drenched. I mean, the rain was coming out of buckets. The officers were there, and then they shouted out an order, and all the Marines broke up, and they came over to shake our hands. And these guys came over, they were wet, they were dripping, and we said, "Oh, we're sorry that you have to do this," because, she says, "Don't worry, we do this every other day." But they got wet, and they were young kids, and they were strong, though. I could feel by their handshake. They had a strong handshake, and then they went back to their barracks and probably and dried up. But we left there. The officers were still there. They were still in the middle of the field in the rain, and they were just talking about stuff. But they were drenched, and and then let's see.
Stick.
Where did we go? What was?
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. It was something happened there.
And so he cooked them, and he had he tasted the first one. The first one went into his friend. So we had that fish for 2 days.
Oh, nice. Yeah. They're really good.
But that's where it was about this little ship.
Oh,
So we got what was left over.
I think it was probably on the 6th of June.
And we get cans of stuff, like we would get cans of corned beef hash. Everybody hated it.
There was a big parade downtown Honolulu, and well, there was a lot to do. There was a park in the center of Honolulu, and there were veterans and all sorts of military people there, and there were speeches and music, and so we hung out there during the day, and at night there was a parade. I don't remember what street it was, but the street at kind of an angle, and so it was a wheelchair parade. So they put me in a wheelchair, and they were pushed by some teenage girls, and there was a big crowd with children, and then when they saw us, they started clapping, and we had a thumbs up, and they had a thumbs up, and they were screaming, and then we broke up, and then we broke up. We started going here and going there with the chairs. We went wild with the chairs, and we give little kids, give them flags, and the crowd, we got a terrific ovation, terrific. The people were with us, you know, they were with us, totally. You know, it was great. It felt great. Yeah, I'll never forget that parade. I was screaming and they were screaming. And the music was playing, and, you know, and Clint Eastwood, you had to put that in a movie. I know they made a movie. Did you see the movie?
Which one?
The one they made of our trip to Honolulu. I never seen it. Right?
No.
I haven't seen
Oh,
it.
is it Donnie Edwards?
Yeah.
Production?
You
Pardon
mean
me?
the
Yeah.
Battlefield Return?
Pardon me?
You mean the Battlefield Return videos?
Yeah, I don't.
Pardon me?
Yeah, it's I guess a Donnie Edwards
Yeah,
video.
it's Donnie Edwards production.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm still waiting to see.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and
Yeah, there was a video that came out, I think either yesterday or a couple of days ago, from Best Defense Foundation, but it was about one of the Pearl Harbor survivors.
Okay. She said there was a production that came out from Donnie Edwards about a Pearl Harbor survivor. So I don't know which one. But, yeah.
that's got to be it.
Yeah. So, well, we'll have to, next time we come over, Dave and I'll get it for you. We'll show
Okay.
it to you.
Okay.
So anything else before we get Gil over here?
I just want to say thank you for your service in the military during World War II.
She's thanking you for your service. in
Oh,
World
thank
War
you.
II.
Thank you. Thank you for your interest.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, I'm gonna go get Gil over here. Gil, you're on.
They had a heart on it immediately.
Right, when you were done.
You're on.
I'm on.
You're on.
All right.
So we-
Shelby, that's
Yeah.
that's also the name of a Mustang.
Yeah, yeah, it's also
Shelby
the,
Mustang. I love
Yep.
the Shelbys.
yes, it's supposed to be one of the fastest cars in the world.
Now, what is her name?
Shelby,
Um,
Shelby, S-H-E-L-B.
That's a first.
I've got a Mustang now.
You got a Mustang?
Yeah,
That's awesome.
a yellow one.
That's really cool.
Big yellow. Yeah.
All right, so are we?
Yeah, I've had 4 Mustangs. I love the Mustang.
Yeah,
I'll put my hat on just to hear.
okay.
Just to see. So she
So
will
you
see.
want to sit there or you want to sit here?
I'll look straight in.
Yeah. Well, I'll
You
turn
sit
it.
here. You can sit here if you want.
Okay,
Okay.
you're gonna hear my
Gil,
Navy buddy here.
They're best
So
buds
long.
here.
So long, Shelby. Bye-bye.
Bye.
God bless.
God bless.
Okay. You want a can of pop? Open the.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Okay, I'll go get it.
open the door, fridge door and get what you want.
Okay.
And in there is cookies.
Okay,
You can get some cookies.
gonna get Shelby hungry here.
Mm.
Hi. Hello, Shelby. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
All
I
right,
put my hat on.
Can you see
I
him
wanted
okay?
you to see me with
Um,
my hat on.
yes, I can see your hat.
But now, whenever I go any place in uniform, I wear this hat. Way back when, until 1955, these were the Navy winter hats.
Awesome.
So they wore these hats in the wintertime and the white hats in the summer. You know,
Wow.
the regular, which you are familiar with the white hats, but you're not familiar with these hats.
Mhm.
And on the front of this hat, it says U.S. Navy.
I
you
can
see-
see it.
Okay.
Can you move to my right?
It says,
Right, I gotta move it this way.
Yes,
see
I
it?
can see it.
say,
Okay.
says U.S. Navy. But
Mhm.
before the war broke out with Japan. If you were aboard ship, right across there was the ship's name. And now, during the war, they took the names off and put U.S. Navy. For the reason is so that they didn't want everybody in the world to know where your ship was, the name of your ship. So anyway, here we are. So where are you? What state do you live in?
New York.
New York.
Hmm.
Wow. Upper New York or
I live in Uptown.
She's in Uptown in
Oh,
Manhattan.
oh,
yeah.
all right. So you're right down
Yeah.
in the worst part. Well, anyway, so what would you like me to start with?
Is it okay if you could tell me about your life before you entered World War II?
Yes, World War II. You know, basically, World War II started in the mid-30s, 1930s,
Mhm.
with Hitler, because Hitler started moving into other countries, taking them over. And the reason why they did this is because they needed something that they didn't have, like iron ore, like oil,
Mhm.
like coal. All these countries that don't have the natural resources like we have or other countries have, they don't want to spend all their money to buy it and keep buying it. So instead, Hitler promised his people in their depression, he would put them all to work, which he did. But he put them all in the factories and they started making money and doing the work, all kinds of work. But the work they were doing was building for war, building tanks, trucks, guns, all that for war stuff rather than peacetime stuff.
Wow.
And so that's why they were able to go into other countries and take them over, because they had all their military all built up. And they had all the people in town, all the Germans, so brainwashed, thinking that that was okay. So that when the time came, all of a sudden, Hitler became a dictator,
Mhm.
and all the people in the factories are now, all their pay was cut down to nothing. And if they complained about it, Hitler had his own police force, called the Gestapo. And they would come over and put a gun to your head and pull a trigger.
Wow.
That's if you complained or disobeyed. And so Germany became a dictatorship, and all the people had to do as they were told, or they were immediately killed.
Wow,
why
that's
we-
terrible.
Never mind, no.
Yeah, did you want your thing is in the refrigerator? Did you get one? Oh, yeah. So anyway, that's why a lot of wars will break out, because one country or two or three countries may have something that the country needs to build up their economy or whatever. So instead of paying for it, it's easier for them to take over the country, and that's where wars start.
Yeah,
And that's where Russia is now trying to take the Ukraine, because the Ukraine has a lot of natural resources like iron ore, for titanium, they have plutonium, they have everything for atomic warfare and everything. They have everything, the Ukraine. That's why Russia wants to take them over. They have oil, all of this natural stuff, they have it, plenty of it. And so pretty soon, Russia will go to war to take over Ukraine. It's not to help out the people, because Russia says Ukraine used to be a part of Russia. And now they're a country of their own. We want them back. They don't want the people back. They want what they have. They want all the natural ores, oil, everything. They want it back. So that gives you an understanding why wars will begin. It's because one country wants what the other has.
Yeah,
Now-
Ukraine wants and Russia wants Ukraine to be. Sorry, I'm just trying. I remember my mom telling me that Ukraine is part of something and Russia doesn't want it to be part of it.
Yeah. So America in the late 30s, when Hitler was taking over the countries, we started to not rebuild our armed forces, but we started to build products of war so we could put them on slow ships to bring them over to the other countries to help them. And now, I was asked a question, did I think, or what did I think about the Japanese hitting Pearl Harbor, and doing what they did? Maybe some of the politicians might have known something like this might happen, but they didn't know for sure. And when Japan decided their Navy had grown big enough, they wanted to eliminate our Navy and take over the Pacific they already had taken over many islands, because what they did was they shipped a lot of their people to their islands. And then when most of the people on the islands were Japanese, they took over the island without having to go to war, really. However, to get the Americans out of the Pacific, now they had to get rid of the Americans. So they amassed their Navy, and on a sudden strike, they went to Pearl Harbor and they caught all of our cruisers and battleships in port. And now you say, how come all those ships were in port? Well, believe it or not, it was a time when all of the branches of service, they followed protocol, which means anything going on, they followed it. So just before Pearl Harbor, what were all the big ships, all of the United States ships going into port for? They were going into port, getting ready to celebrate what holiday? Christmas, December.
Yes, Christmas.
All of the big battleships and cruisers were in Pearl Harbor, all tied up. Unfortunately for the Japanese, our military, our Navy still had operations going on. All of our carriers were not tied up in Pearl Harbor. They were all at sea, and the Japanese did not know where they were. So when they hit Pearl Harbor, they demolished our heavy, heavy ships, battleships and cruisers and a bunch of other ships. But they didn't get rid of the cruisers and destroyers and the carriers. That was mistake number one for Japan. But anyway, when that happened, back in our days, back in the 40s like that, we didn't have the media that we have today. We didn't have cell phones. We didn't have the TV. It wasn't a big thing then. The only media we had then was radio and newspapers. And unlike today, the newspapers told the truth about what was happening. Now they're all lies. You don't know whether they're telling the truth or not. But the media, we only had newspapers and radio. Today, we have all kinds of, we have hand cell phones, we have apps, we have everything.
Yep.
You can find out anything you want at any time. We didn't in our day. And so when the Japs had that strike on Pearl, all the people in America, we were so angry. Everybody wanted to join up in the service right away. And it's like I tell the high school students today, when I go to talk to them, they say, "Why did you go in?" We were so angry. All we wanted to do, men, women, children, everything wanted to go in, get in to fight the Japs. And as I tell them in school, we wanted to kick butt. We wanted to win the war, come home, and go on with our lives. And that's what we did. Now, of course, I was too young to go in right away. So I wasn't old enough. But when I got to be 16, in January, the first week of January, I went into the Navy. I was 4 months shy of 17. And in those days, we were all very naive. We were very innocent. In those days, when you heard people swearing and so forth, you went right to church and confessed that you heard all these bad things. That's the way it was. When somebody told you to do something, you obeyed the elders. Not like today, where you tell all the older people where to go. But that's the way it was in our day, and when we were young. And so I went to boot camp because I enlisted. And my folks signed the papers allowing me to go in at 16. My boot camp was 29 days instead of 3 months. Then I was sent to a service school, and my service school was supposed to be for 3 months. It was 28 days. And then when they asked me what I wanted to do, I told them. And that's what I didn't get. And when they asked me what kind of ship I wanted to be on, of course, being very naive and very innocent, naturally, I was thinking of dreams of glory. I wanted to be on a big battleship. I didn't get it. I got into a small, very small, amphibious gunship.
Wow.
Very, very small. It was so small that we had nothing on it where we lived down below was just bunks and lockers. No chairs, no tables, no desks, no books to read, nothing. No radio, nothing. And so in a bad storm, we had to be down below and in our bunks. Otherwise, the ocean waves would wash over the bow and would wash us right off the ship. So there was nothing aboard ship. It was tiny. And we only had 71 men on the ship, and most of them were gunners because it was a gunship. And the average age, when you take everybody's age and add them together and divide them by the number of people, the average age came out to be 19.
Wow.
Most of us were 17. And on a little ship that we had a like 5-week training and had to learn everything. Because if we didn't, we might have been the cause of our shipmates dying. We had to know everything aboard ship and how to run things and everything else. That's the way it was. So that at 17, that was a short time from 16 to 17. And now I am no longer a kid. I am no longer a juvenile. I am mentally an adult. I've learned everything I have to learn to survive. And that's the way it was. And now, during World War II, everybody wanted to be in the service. World War II was the greatest years of women's emancipation. You know what I mean by that?
Yeah, with because when the men were gone off to fight, the women had to do the work.
Right. Where women, instead of being a housewife at home, doing all the cooking and all that, and the kids doing the work of washing the dishes and all that, it was the mom and the dad that did the cooking. It was they did all the deciding and doing everything. They told you what to do. And as kids, we obeyed them. And so during the war, all the men were going out to fight the war. So who do you think were the people in the factories? Who was making the ammunition? Who's building the guns? Who's building the planes and the ships, big ships, and ammunition and
Women.
planes, everything? It was the women. It was women that supplied the world with all the armament that we needed to win World War II. It was you women that did that. So you should be very proud of it.
I am.
And all of us servicemen, we are proud of them too, because it took a lot for a strict home housewife to go out and learn how to weld, how to do all of this stuff and do it well. So you women had a big part in World War II. You kept us supplied with everything we needed. You name it. We got it. We needed it. So basically, when I went out on my little ship wasn't to go out there and fight the war with the Japanese carriers or battleships. I was a very small ship I could not stand up to any big ships at all. But we had special work to do. And that's why they built just a few of my type of ships to go out to the Pacific only and do our bit. And when people say, why did you go out? We didn't go out to get paid big money. We didn't go out to learn a trade. We went out to kick butt, to win the war and come home. And that's what we did. And when we came home, the greatest thing that we got was the GI Bill. You know what that is?
I've heard of
Well,
it before. What was it?
That GI Bill allowed us, which we would never have been able to do financially, to go to college free. And many of us did. I was able to put 2 semesters of college in, but I had to leave because my 2 parents, they died, and I had to quit school. But
Sorry
I
to hear
stayed
that.
in the Navy for 10 years. And then I left the Navy after 10 years. And everything was in the Navy wasn't like it is today. Today, all of the morals are going, they're losing the morals because now they're not allowing the preachers or the priests or the rabbis to even mention Jesus or God.
Wow.
And they're taking all of that away from the servicemen. And now they're teaching you not liberty, but they're beginning to brainwash everybody to be part of the government. And what the government says you are supposed to do. That's almost like a dictatorship like Hitler did.
Whoa.
And it's up to people like you young people that are still in school, that they're pulling the racism bit to separate you from every type of person in the world. And when you do that, you're all divided. And when you're divided, you lose. During World War I and World War II, America was a undivided country. We all worked for ourselves, but we all helped each other out. And that's why we all went into World War II. We wanted to be a free country again. And for a long time, we have been. Now it's up to you young people to read and understand what is happening. We have already lost a whole bunch of our own freedoms, which we fought in World War I and World War II to keep. So all we ask you young people is study, understand what's going on, and stand up for your rights. Show me you're a very pretty girl.
Thank you.
So, are you still in high school?
Yes, I am.
Are you a senior?
No, I'm a junior.
Oh, good for you.
Mhm.
Study.
I will.
Don't even think about leaving school until you finish. Study hard. and learn what's going on.
Mhm.
Because if you don't know, then you become a person that can be easily led by the dictators.
Mhm. Yeah,
And you don't want to be one of those people to
Nope.
complain and get shot.
no.
No. So there you are. So you're gonna write up the stories for school or what?
So just trying to think. This is for my Girl Scout Gold Award, or so I could achieve my Girl Scout Gold Award.
Oh, good.
And the
Good
reason
for
I'm
you.
doing this is people in my generation don't know the sacrifices and risks people made to protect their country. And it's also a way to celebrate the memory of my grandfather, who was a World War II Army medic who went to Japan at the post era. Unfortunately, he passed away in August of 2020.
Oh, wow. So did you have a grandfather or something in the service, World War II?
Wait, say that again?
Yeah. Did you have a member of your family that was in World War II?
Yes, my grandfather.
Who was in the Army?
Mm-hmm.
And you know, I'm telling you something. They still discriminated then. They discriminated for all of the colored people.
Mm-hmm.
They would give them subservient jobs. But today they don't. Today in the Navy, you got top admirals. You've got high officers. You very seldom had high officers of your race in the service. But today they do have them. And they're great men. They are really smart and they are real wonderful leaders. I have served under a whole bunch of them. And they are great, including, excuse me,
Are you okay?
including the females, women. They are in the service too. One of my very good lady friends was a 3-star admiral
Wow.
in charge of the 3rd Pacific Fleet, in charge of it all.
Wow.
Now you don't get that for just being a certain color. You get that from being smart and knowing how to lead and knowing things. That's why I say, stay in school, study and learn. You can go, right now, you can go as high as you want. I'm not saying try to be president, because that's a thankless job. But you can be you can get to be high executive, anything, because we're still undivided. Right now, they're playing the racist game. They're trying to divide us all.
Yeah.
And once you're divided, you're alone. You lose.
Mm-hmm.
So maintain one division. You're all alike. See? When I was young, I was from Massachusetts. I was brought up there. And there was still a lot of racism going with colored people. Well, you know, we had colored people. That's what we call them. Colored people. We didn't call them blacks. We didn't call them anything else. We call them colored people. And they lived in our neighborhoods and we loved them all. We treated them like anybody else. That's the way it was up in New England. and all the bad times. So when I went in the service and I encountered the Southerners mistreating colored people, I was very angry. And they knew about it too. And I still am. So I tell you now, don't be divided. Study though. Learn. And you can be anything you want. Anything. I had a girl from New Jersey.
Mhm.
She wanted an interview like you, only we didn't do it over the phone. We did it over the phone. And she sent me a picture of herself. And she was colored, a colored girl. And she says, when I get up, and she was in the Marines in high school, ROTC. And she
Mhm.
says, I'm not going to go to college. I'm going to go right in the Marines. And I said, you could get your education first and then become an officer. She says, I'm going to go in and I'm going to get a field commission, meaning as a enlisted person, they will make her an officer. I'm still in contact with her.
Mhm.
She's only been in the Marines 1 year, and already she is a sergeant,
Wow.
which is unheard of.
Yeah.
I'm 3 stripes in 1 year in the Marines. That doesn't happen. Yeah, and I talked to her on the phone and on the internet, and I give her all the praise in the world. I said, "You're still studying, aren't you?" She says, "Yes." That's what I want you to do. For everything that we have done for our service time. Andre, he's 96. I'm 95. I'm
Wow.
old man, aren't I? But when we get together with a lot of the World War II veterans, he and I are kids.
Oh, you're the babies. Yeah.
All the others are 98 and up. But I tell you, for what we've all done to keep freedom in America, all we ask for you young people is that we want you to maintain the freedom. Don't let our government pull the wool over your eyes. You have a vote. Vote for freedom.
Oh,
Like I
well,
said, you're a very pretty girl.
thank you.
So, now, any other
Do you have
questions?
any other questions?
Um, with the Best Defense Foundation, I realized you went back to Iwo Jima and Pearl Harbor for the 80th anniversary of the attack. How did you feel when you went to those two? How did you feel when you went to those two places?
And she won't.
Yeah, how did you feel when you went back to Iwo Jima and
Oh.
Pearl Harbor?
We were taken back in 2019,
Mhm.
and there was 6 of us. Three of us, we weren't all Navy. We were Army, we were Marines, and Navy. 3 of them, 2 were Marines, and they were in more than one war in the Pacific, and they made the field commissions. So when they left the service, they were lieutenant colonels. That's high up. That's like a commander in the Navy. So when we went back, it was nice to see the places that we had liberated. But the one thing that was very amazing to me was Iwo Jima. That island is exactly like it is today, like it was right after the war. In case you haven't heard about it, I didn't know about it either. 40 some odd years later, I didn't realize it. But that is and was, it still is, a Japanese island. And because we won that war, that battle, and they lost so many men, Iwo Jima is now considered a Japanese, the island of peace in the Pacific.
Wow.
All they have done to that island is we took it because we wanted the big airport. It was just a step closer to Japan, for flying our planes.
Mhm.
But the Japanese have maintained that airport. And the other thing that they are doing is they're still looking for bodies. Because when the Americans went in, we didn't leave them. We didn't leave them alive. Because the Japanese were so brainwashed that to be taken captive was like a sin to them. That was a disgrace. So rather than be taken, they would step right out front, shooting at you, knowing they were going to be killed. And that kept them from being disgraced. But on Iwo Jima, it's not much of an island. It's flat, but it has one mountain. It used to be a volcano, but it's not active. But in one tall mountain, in the years and years the Japanese had, they tunneled that mountain, and they had tunnels all the way through it, so that when our boys came ashore, they would open up an opening and with cannons and just fire right straight down on our boys. It was terrible. Our boys didn't stand a chance. But one thing that we had at that time were the flame throwers. That's the gun that shot flames. And when we would get to a cave, we would, instead of trying to get the Japanese out, they would just fire these flamethrowers in there. And of course, burn the guys. And the same with the shore. And all of these bodies are still buried. So Japan took it upon themselves to spend all these years digging the bodies. And if they ascertained they were Japanese, they sent the bodies back to Japan. And if they found out they were American bodies, they sent them to Pearl Harbor, where Pearl Harbor has a big outfit there that is finding the DNA and trying to find who the people were and putting them in the cemeteries. And one day a year, get this, one day a year will the Japanese allow anybody else other than Japanese workers to go on that island. They allowed two plane loads of Americans or some from other countries. And they fly them in. They have to go to Guam. And they have to get on that plane. And the Japanese are very strict with the clothing. All the men, if they don't go in uniform like we are, Andre and I, we went in uniform. If you went in uniforms, you had to have a shirt, a tie, and a sport jacket, and long pants. And you couldn't wear work shoes, you had to wear a decent pair of shoes. And any women going had to be dressed formally. Now, I'll tell you, a woman wearing a blouse like you have
Mhm.
were not allowed on that plane.
Wow.
They had to have a collar and nothing open in the front. No V opening in the front.
Mhm.
And when you boarded the plane, the Japanese inspector came aboard and looked at every man. And I remember sitting close to me was a guy with no tie. And the Jap said to him, "You get up and get off the plane." And he said, "Why?" "No tie." He says, "It's in my pocket." He says, "Then sit down, put your tie on, and it stays on until you get back in the plane to come get off the island." And
They were really strict.
any woman had a open dress or open a cleft down,
Mhm.
were immediately sent off the plane. Now that is strict, isn't it? They
Very.
are. And now you think, okay, now sitting across from me was a female. She was a rear admiral,
Mhm.
and she went on that island in her whites. Mistake number one, because that island is flat and all the winds coming through and blowing that black
sand.
dirt and sand blowing all over. When she left that island, I knew where her clothes were going to go, right away into the washing machine.
Mhm.
She was almost black, but she was a nice lady. I talked to her and I had a nice time with her. But she was in charge of the Navy, the Navy Yard on Guam. And then we had Coast Guard. He was just a captain. He was in charge of the Coast Guard base on Guam. I got to meet him too. They were fine people. But she was a rear admiral. That's 1 star. Not bad. I thought that was darn good, you know. And so you see, today it's not like it was. And it's all because we kept this country free. And now we ask is for you people. I don't care what color you are. We're asking the children, I tell them in the schools, all we want is for you to stay in school, learn what's going on, and keep the freedom. If you lose your freedoms, we'll be like any country in the world. Somebody will take us over and everybody will be slaves. Really and truly. And it's not a case of racism then.
Mhm.
It's a case of who's in power and who isn't. So we enjoy going to the schools and talking to a lot of these kids. But you know, one thing that makes me mad,
What?
we'll leave a classroom and all the kids go out, high school, they go out, they're sitting down on little fences or drywalls or something.
Mhm.
What do you think they're doing?
Loitering? I don't know.
They're on their damn handphone. And I say to them, don't you kids communicate together anymore? And one girl said to me, I am communicating. With who? With her. Right beside her. Now they're talking to each other on the damn telephone. That's stupid. Talk to each other. Talk to each other. Never mind that fella, that phone. Communicate. Because once you leave high school, now you're going to have to mingle with adults.
Mhm.
And now you lose a lot of what they in the service call camaraderie. That's meaning we get together because we've been there. We've done the things. We've been in the war. We know what it's like. We can talk about it. We can feel it. So when you talk to all of your friends, talk to them, not with a telephone. Be friends with them. Because when you go up, generally a long time, they're the only friends you have. Last week, I got a telephone call from a high school friend of mine.
Mhm.
I haven't seen him in 48 years. But
Wow.
we contact each other on the internet.
Mhm.
And he told me about a high school friend of mine that he and his wife just celebrated their 75th wedding anniversary.
Mhm.
Imagine, they've been married longer than a lot of people are alive. They were 75 years of marriage. So I got on the phone. I was trying to call him. He called me on the phone, this guy. I wrote him a letter and sent him a card. He called me on the phone. Well, his voice has changed, so is mine. I'm partly deaf. So he gave me his telephone number. I didn't get it right.
Mhm.
So when I called, it wasn't him. So now I've got to go all through sending him a letter and getting his phone again. And I'm going to get his internet so that we can see each other and talk to each other on the phone. Now, if I was like you guys and I just talked to everybody on the phone, not to them, I wouldn't give a darn. I probably wouldn't even remember them. So this is something. Talk to your friends. And if they want to talk to you on the phone and sitting right beside you, say, no, talk to me. That's how you learn things. That's how people will learn about you. That's how people will like you, will love you,
Mhm.
and would care to be with you. Okay? I'm
Okay.
not scolding you. I'm just telling
No.
you. I'm just telling you the things because all you young kids are losing out. You're not talking to each other, and except the damn phone, and that's nothing.
Mhm.
If you drop the phone and it's broken, then what do?
Go get it fixed or get a new
You
phone.
have to turn and talk to them. So, Shelby, it's really nice talking to you.
It's really nice talking to you too.
And I will get your address and I will send you a nice little note. And then maybe the both of us can exchange and get on the internet and talk to each other and keep in contact with each other.
Gil
Yep.
is an avid user of the computer, so he's great.
Yeah. So,
I'm gonna get a picture. You stay there.
okay.
Okay.
and I'm gonna get a picture of you there with the guys in the background here.
Okay.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. All right. Smile. Smile. Let's see how that came out. Okay, I'll share that with you.
Okay.
Okay, okay, back to you. Okay. Okay, we're ready to wrap it up, or how, you have anything else you need, or?
Yeah. No, I think that was all my questions.
Okay,
Okay,
and I sent you the bios and some pictures of Andre's artwork, and
Mhm.
anything else you need, just, let me know.
give me that.
Well,
I'll see this.
She's
Yes.
not.
he has one of the best defense cards.
No, do you see it?
Yes, I
will
see it.
send you. I'll send you one of these, and on the back is a little history, my history of it, and we can keep in contact.
Yep.
And I think,
No, some-
you would like that. And
Yeah, some of
even if you have friends, they would get information too. And they,
Yep.
and see, when you show them that, then they like you more. Wow.
Yep. Some of the war veterans from Best Defense Foundation sent me some of their cards, like
Yeah. But remember, we're not young.
Mhm.
We're two old geezers,
Young and hard.
but we're active. And
Yep.
the secret is keep active
Mhm.
mentally and physically. Don't be a couch potato. You know what that is?
Yeah,
Somebody
someone who's
sits on a
lazy.
couch and does nothing. You'll die quick. Be active
I will.
Yeah.
with your friends, without, you can do it.
Yeah,
Remember, talk to your friends.
I
Pick
will.
up the phone.
Okay, well, thank you. And
Thank you.
if you need anything else, I can get answers for you, or anything else you need.
Okay. Mr. Gill, thank you for your service in World War II. I'm forever grateful to you and Mr. Andre.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay.
And so when we exchange, you can give me your email address and your phone number, and we can
Okay.
keep in contact that way. Okay?
Okay.
Okay.
I would love to do that.
Okay. Love to do that too.
All right.
Okay,
Well, thank you. We appreciate
Thank you.
you. So thank you.
so love ya.
Bye.
Bye.
Hey, that's Nate.